page 154. The logic of the subconsciousness works with razor sharpness and precision. Consequently, an autogenic training, or the Coué method, etc., inevitably brings forth exactly the opposite sense of what is hoped for by those with damaged psyches. Hence, such methods must only be applied in other cases and not psychically connected illnesses. With psychically stricken human beings, the aforementioned methods are able to bring the complete ruin and the destruction to the human beings. If through autosuggestion, warmth and tiredness, etc. are created, such naturally have an impact on the body, whereas the subconsciousness releases its overload, which manifests as an intensive burden, and the psychic damage is caused. The Coué method, or go, 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 or I'm feeling better and better and better, etc., creates exactly the same symptoms in the subconsciousness as an autogenic training. Since the subconsciousness thinks with absolute logic, it thus immediately signals the opposite of go, 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 or, quote, I am feeling better, better, better. So therefore, I am feeling bad, I am ill, I have pain, etc. Because for the subconsciousness, it is absolutely logical that the opposite of, quote, healthy is simply ill, of better simply bad, and of go, quote, come, or it is here. Therefore, since the subconsciousness functions absolutely logically, one must in no wise think unlogically, or hence in this case, opposite. Autosuggestive, Coué method, etc. Because such methods are really only appropriate for psychically healthy human beings, whereas they are able to bring a psychically stricken human being to the complete destruction. However, if this unlogic is nevertheless practiced by psychiatry, etc., then through it, an irresponsible, destructive, and deadly irrational teaching is applied and spread. A psychically stricken human being can be freed of his or her afflictions by only one single method: real positive thinking. This means that the person concerned must in no wise think anything to the contrary of their psychic afflictions. The thinking must be concentrated upon something completely neutral, upon something that has not one iota to do with the psychic afflictions, either directly or indirectly. But now, before the positive thinking along this line can be explained, it is necessary once again to explain the negative and positive, since this material is very far-reaching and difficult to comprehend. Therefore, an explanation of the kinds of thoughts, positive or negative, already mentioned in another place, is to be described in more detail. It was already stated that thoughts can be divided into only two kinds: positive or negative. Negative means evil, ungood, negating, doubting thoughts. They undermine the morale, the psyche, and the advancement. Like magnets, they attract negative human beings who bring harm and ill will. Every kind of failure and disharmony find entry into the life. Power and health become weakened. Disinterest emerges and drives everything finally to the self-destruction. Positive thoughts are upbuilding, life-affirming, good and healthy. They form and strengthen the good character, attract desirable human beings, helpers, and true friends. Success and happiness become the natural companions. All this is now to be understood as follows. The human being needs the negative as well as the positive, but with the difference that the necessary negative is just as valuable as the positive. That means that the negative and the positive, to a large extent, are of equal value and therefore form a single component. However, if one or the other takes the upper hand, then the negative or positive powers become too great. Therefore, it ausartet, or gets very badly out of control of the good human nature, and becomes overloaded. So, it is therefore to be understood that negative ausartung attracts everything evil and terrible, whereas the normal positive-neutral, or thus equalizedness of the negative and positive, attracts and summons everything good and affirmative. Now, when a human being thus thinks only negatively in any direction, then it means a negative Ausartung, which summons only the negative. However, if a human being thinks only from a positive point of view, then again it means an Ausartung, which likewise brings only harm, namely in the respect that through the too great, quote, goodness, or mostly created through the irrational teachings of religions, the particular human being will be taken advantage of by third parties. But if a human being thinks normally, that means he or she thinks healthy, positive-negative, thus equalized, then he or she attracts everything positive, good, and affirmative. Healthy, positive-negative, and therefore equalized thinking means that thinking must be natural law-based. Natural law-based means, again, that just as much positive as negative must exist, however, without any Ausartung, which is without any of the very badly getting out of the control of the good human nature. This law can be explained with the following example. If in the wild an animal ausartet, then based on natural law it will be destroyed, extinguished, and killed. Either the animal is destroyed by elemental powers, by illness or infirmity, by other animals, or by human beings, etc. A negatively ausgeartetes animal in the wild is logically based on natural law, therefore destroyed and killed. And exactly this natural law is positive-negative, therefore equalized and one component. This law contains just as much positive as negative, through which, and only through it, the life and survival of the healthy life is ensured. In other words, this means therefore that killing and destruction are actually negative deeds. However, these deeds are nevertheless necessary and essential in order to destroy something which is incapable of life, dangerous, and unworthy of life, through which all other life is protected. This seemingly only negative deed is negative-positive, therefore equalized. The killing of the ausgearteten animal is necessary, through which other and good life can be protected. An ausgeartete negative deed would only then be present if the killing would take place without logical justification and without a compelling reason. And likewise, an ausgeartete positive deed would exist, or which however would be again be negative, if the ausgeartete animal was not killed but would be allowed to live. Thereby this would namely then ensure that the ausgeartete animal could develop into a beast and would boundlessly destroy everything that simply came into its proximity. However, this must not be, because otherwise, in the shortest time, all life on the earth would be endangered and potentially destroyed. Therefore, to prevent this, everything is logically subject to a quite distinct natural law, which, without any Ausartung, is just as much negative as positive. According to nature, therefore, any Ausartung must be destroyed, which is fully logical, because only then can the healthy life be preserved. Therefore, it is also only logical that the nature fights back against everything that the human being, with his or her erroneous development and with his or her megalomania, undertakes negatively against it. Meddling in the handiwork of nature therefore means that the nature logically rebels against it and strikes back with death and annihilation. Thus observed and considered, natural catastrophes are also only a defense and a natural reaction to the unrealistic mode of behavior and the applied insanity of the human being against the nature and the repudiation and contempt of its laws. Since the nature is ordered into a completely logical law and therefore can only act logically, every Ausartung must become destroyed and eradicated. But the nature can only follow this logical law when it is logical within itself, And that is exactly what it is, because the nature is in itself logically structured. A logical mode of thinking for the human being is just as much natural law-based as the logical mode of behavior of the nature itself. However, with the human being, the circumstance exists that he or she must first learn and recognize the compliance with the laws of nature. From this it results that he or she must therefore first equalize the negative-positive thinking in order that he/she can then follow the laws of nature. If this does not happen, then an Ausartung into the negative or positive occurs, in which case Ausartungen in either direction are contrary to nature. Only an equalizedness of the negative-positive is natural and logical, of constant benefit and of real good. Real positive thinking means absolute neutral positive thinking, thus not contrarily speaking against a matter. Absolute neutral positive thinking for the psyche also further means that a really completely neutral topic must be used for the thinking, something that in no wise stands in any relation to the negative, terrible thing. The following serves as an illustration. Quote, I am ill, I am in pain. That's illness/psyche or negative thinking. Equals reaction of the subconscious, quote, I am ill, I am in pain. Every day I feel better and better, etc. Attempted healing, or psyche, or negative opposite thinking, equals reaction of the subconscious, I am ill, I am in pain. Quote, the rose is wonderfully beautiful, etc. How marvelously warm the sun is, etc. Healing/psyche, absolute neutral thinking, positive thinking, wishful dream, equals reaction of the subconscious, the rose is wonderfully beautiful. How marvelously warm the sun is, etc. How does one now think really positively? How does it come about? And what are the possibilities? Even though the positive thinking is very easy, a difficulty lies therein that the terrible things in the subconsciousness must be contained and neutralized by the consciousness. This means that the consciousness of a stricken psyche must begin to rule over the subconsciousness until the subconsciousness acknowledges the trains of thought of the consciousness as knowledge/fact. To achieve this requires very great effort in the beginning, since the subconsciousness persistently and burdensomely tries to push the overloading terrible things through into the consciousness. That is why it is absolutely necessary that the constant attempts of the subconsciousness to penetrate and push through are intensely, or stubbornly, maybe even obsessively, pushed aside and displaced with neutral goods of thoughts, or wishful dream, etc., through which slowly but surely emerges a superimposition and dissolution of the terrible things in the subconsciousness, which are displaced and in the end totally neutralized. The best neutral positive mode of thinking is represented by a wishful dream, although other neutral positive goods of thoughts can also be used. It should, however, be stated that a wishful dream for very many human beings is much simpler and easier to use than any other neutral positive thinking material. It is also specifically pointed out that any neutral positive thinking must be thus applied as if it were present. Thus, e.g., if a flower garden is thought of and fantasized as a wishful dream, then it must be thought of as present. In no wise must it appear in the future tense, as e.g., quote, I will or would like to do this and that, or, quote, it would be nice if I could do this or that, which then must already be again evaluated as a future wish. Only the pure and clear present tense is logical in this respect, and this means quite simply, quote, I do this and that, or, quote, I am doing this and that because it is nice. The wishful dream must therefore be thought of and envisaged in the absolute present tense, thus as if the wishful dream was actually and already in the present. The future tense, quote, I will or I would like, it would be nice, it could be nice, etc., etc., applies to an effective wish and therefore may not be used because the subconsciousness would press its once entrenched terrible thing immediately to the foreground again, because with thoughts like it would, it could, etc., it immediately counters with it is not, it cannot, I am suffering, etc. This occurs because the mode of thinking, respectively the thinking material, I would like, I could, it would be nice, and so on and so forth, is absolutely unlogical, doubtful, uncertain, and fickle. Logic, however, is not built upon doubtfulness, uncertainty, and fickleness, but on the absolute certainty, which in this case means, quote, it is, I do, I make this, it is pretty, it is nice, and so on and so forth. Logic is the absolute certainty, which is built upon the absolute certainty of the law of nature. Unlogic, however, is absolute uncertainty, which is based upon contrary to nature confusions, irrational teachings on irrealism, doubt, fickleness, and unknowledge, etc. Besides the neutral positive mode of thinking, there are still two further very important points to observe and to follow, because they are likewise of fundamental decisiveness. These 3 points, the quote, 3 golden rules, shall be named here now. Intensively and constantly applied, they already bring the first successes in a short time, and already quite soon, the healing of a confused mode of thinking. A lack of success is absolutely impossible if the 3 golden rules are genuinely, intensively, and constantly carried out. If success does not already come within a few days, then it lies only with the particular person himself or herself, because he or she is not taking the 3 golden rules seriously enough, practices them with too little intensity, or quite simply uses them disinterestedly. With right and intensive use of the 3 golden rules, the first successes will already appear within 3 to 7 days. With easy cases, the first successes will often already appear after a few hours or even minutes, whereas with exceptionally difficult cases it can take up to 6 months. It would be appropriate, therefore, that in every case a person skilled in these matters would be consulted, who was able to determine and can evaluate the severity of the stricken psyche and when a success must be recognizable. The reason for this is that countless psychically stricken human beings are of the false view and of the false feeling that they, of all people, are the worst off, although they are mostly only suffering under small or average psychic disturbances. A necessary clarification in this respect would therefore be only of benefit for each individual, because a human being should and must never, and in no wise, feel more ill or more stricken than he or she is in reality. An exaggerated thinking of the terrible things is immensely harmful, and a healing can thereby be put into question. Clarification by a qualified person in respect to the severity of the affliction is therefore necessary, and of importance, if the particular human being is not capable of doing it for himself or herself. A self-assessment in every wise is admittedly immensely difficult and unadvisable for everyone, because in order to be able to do this, he or she needs a very great power of assessment and self-honesty.